What if I told you that every problem you face, every limit you think is real, began with a single thought you believed without question, not because it was true, but because you made it true with your belief? Belief is not passive. It's power. It's law. You are not becoming who you want to be. You are becoming who you believe you are. This is not poetry. It is not philosophy in the abstract. This is the mechanism of transformation itself. The great key behind every success story, every failure, every act of courage or collapse: you will never rise above what you believe to be true about yourself, not in the long run. And so I ask you directly, because no one else will, what is it that you actually believe about you? Strip away the noise. Remove the pretense. Look beyond what you say in public. What does the voice in the dark tell you about your worth, your potential, your right to rise? That voice is your blueprint. Whether whispered or shouted, it draws the outline of your life. Every decision, every risk avoided or taken, every opportunity sabotaged or seized, all of it flows downstream from belief. You may think you're living by logic, but logic obeys belief. You may think you're choosing your path, but the path was set the moment you accepted a vision of yourself as final. And if that vision is small, so too will your life be. Belief is not a wish. It is not a hope. It is not the soft comfort of dreaming. Belief is structure. It is a command to the universe. It is the coordinates you lock into your subconscious and follow, whether you realize it or not. Let me be painfully honest. If your life is mediocre, if your days are filled with hesitation and your nights echo with regret, it is not because you are cursed. It is because you are living out a belief that says, "This is all I'm worth." Change that belief, and you change everything. But most people won't. They'll tinker with habits. They'll chase quick fixes. They'll swap out surface-level routines. But they won't go into the darkroom and confront the belief behind it all. Why? Because belief is personal. It is vulnerable. It means rewriting the story you've told yourself for decades. It means letting go of excuses. It means choosing power over pity. And that scares people, but not you. Not anymore. You are here because something in you is ready. Something inside is done being caged by old beliefs that never belonged to you. You've outgrown them. Now it's time to replace them with purpose, with vision, with fire. Because you don't get what you want in life. You don't even get what you work for. You get what you believe is possible and what you believe you deserve. And here's the truth. Belief is not inherited. It is built. You don't need permission. You don't need credentials. You need only the courage to believe in a version of yourself you haven't met yet and commit to becoming it. You become what you believe, and that belief starts now. I've walked among the broken. I've sat in silence with those who gave up on themselves long before the world did. And I've seen one thing with ruthless consistency. Their downfall did not begin with failure. It began with belief. A belief that whispered, "You are not enough," until it echoed so loudly they mistook it for truth. They didn't fall because life was cruel. They fell because they expected to fall. They rehearsed defeat in their minds until it became reality. They didn't even need the world to destroy them. They destroyed themselves, and with quiet certainty. Now understand this. Belief is not always loud. It doesn't always come in bold declarations. Sometimes it hides in subtle thoughts. It hides in the way you hesitate before speaking your mind. It hides in how you downplay your dreams so others won't judge you. It hides in your constant need for approval, as if your worth is waiting for someone else to stamp it. Belief reveals itself in your habits, in your posture, in the speed of your decisions, in whether your eyes dart or hold steady. It leaks from your voice, from the way you carry yourself in a room, from how quickly you shrink when challenged. You see, belief creates identity, and identity governs behavior. If you believe you are a leader, you act like one. You move like one. You speak like one. Not because you're trying, but because your subconscious no longer sees another option. If you believe you are unworthy, well, The world will always rise to confirm it, not because it is true, but because you made it true. Let that sink in. You are the author. The pen has always been in your hand. The problem is, you've been letting someone else's voice dictate your script. That ends now. From this moment forward, you no longer wait for permission. You no longer beg for belief from the outside. You begin generating it from within. And yes, at first it will feel fake, because you've been conditioned to believe in your limits longer than you believed in your power. But belief doesn't need to feel real to become real. It only needs to be practiced. Every time you speak life into your potential, you chip away at the old identity. Every time you choose courage instead of doubt, you rewrite the inner script. Every time you stand tall instead of shrinking, even if your knees tremble, you are proving to your subconscious, we are no longer that person. This is the quiet revolution, the internal mutiny, not loud, but relentless. And I'll tell you this, the world won't understand you when you begin. They'll mock the new belief. They'll say, you've changed. And they'll be right, because that's the point. You are no longer in agreement with your old limitations. You are no longer available for mediocrity. You are no longer a match for the smallness that once felt like home. That is belief in motion. That is the birth of a new destiny. So do not ask whether belief matters. Ask only this: which belief are you willing to fight for? Because your entire life will grow or shrink to match the answer. There is a silent battle waged in every mind, a war between two forces: the belief that says, I can, and the belief that whispers, I'm not enough. One will crown you, the other will crush you, and the outcome of your life depends on which one you feed. You must understand, every thought is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. When you say, I'll try, instead of, I will, you're casting a vote for doubt. When you shrink from risk to avoid discomfort, you're telling your subconscious, I do not trust myself to handle power. And when you let others decide your worth, you've already handed over your crown. But belief is reclaimed in moments, tiny moments, a breath, a decision, a refusal to play small. That's all it takes to start rewriting your story. Don't wait for certainty. Certainty is the reward of belief, not the prerequisite. You move first, the feeling comes second. You declare the identity, then you grow into it. This is how the giants rise. This is how the greats are forged. Not because they were born extraordinary, but because they refused to keep believing the ordinary was their limit. If you knew what was possible for you, truly knew, you would fall to your knees in awe. You would apologize to yourself for all the years you lived under a lie. You would weep at the realization that the door was never locked. You just never tried to push it open. That's what belief does. It awakens you. It reminds you you were never meant to crawl. You were born to build, to rise, to speak with thunder and walk with command. But the world doesn't reward your potential. It rewards your belief in that potential, because belief births action, and action reshapes the world around you. The man who believes in his purpose can endure storms that would break the doubter. The woman who believes in her worth can walk away from what others call comfort, because she sees it for what it is, a cage. I tell you this because I've seen it in myself. I've stood at the edge of doubt, faced with the question, am I the man I think I am? Or just the echo of what others believe about me? And in that moment, I chose. I chose to believe in the highest version of myself, even before I could prove it. And that choice created proof. Do you understand? Belief precedes evidence. It is the cause, not the effect. You must dare to believe before the world gives you permission. You must walk like a king in exile, holding the crown in your heart, even when the throne seems far away, because no one will anoint you until you anoint yourself. So don't wait. This is your turning point. The moment you stop asking if you're enough and start declaring, I am becoming the one who is, you become what you believe. And now, it's time to believe on purpose. Every empire begins with a single belief, one stubborn, unshakable idea planted deep in the soil of the soul. The belief that I was born for more, that's it. That one spark lights the fire. It sustains you when no one claps. It fuels you when the evidence is thin. It becomes your shelter when the storm comes and your compass when the road disappears. But here's the truth they won't teach you in school. Belief isn't something you have. It's something you build. It's a discipline. A decision made over and over, especially when doubt starts to claw at the edges of your vision. You don't rise to the level of your dreams, you fall to the level of your belief. And most people are starving for confidence because they've spent a lifetime feeding the wrong belief. They water weeds and wonder why the flowers won't grow. You can't keep repeating, I'm tired, I'm stuck, I'm broken, and expect to feel powerful. The mind is listening, your cells are listening, life itself is listening. What you speak becomes law, and what you repeat becomes your ritual. So if you want a new life, you must adopt new rituals of belief, daily, without fail. Like breath, like water, essential and non-negotiable. You wake up and choose to believe even if your voice shakes. You take action, not because you're fearless, but because belief is the act of moving despite fear. You remind yourself, I am not defined by the version of me who gave up yesterday. Because belief isn't about pretending to be perfect. It's about refusing to stay the same. There will be days when you feel like a fraud, when the old voice returns and says, who do you think you are? That's the moment to double down. That's the moment to answer back, I am becoming. Let them doubt. Let them whisper. Let them stare as you build your castle from the bricks they threw. Because one day, not long from now, the results will speak louder than your explanation ever could. Belief has a frequency. It can't be faked. It either resonates from your being or it doesn't. People feel it in your presence. They respond to it before you open your mouth. And the universe, yes, even the unseen forces of opportunity and timing, respond to it too. I have seen doors open where none existed, simply because a man believed he was worthy to walk through them. I have seen the weak become strong, the broken become bold, and the silent become unstoppable, all because they reprogrammed the core belief they carried like a curse for years. Don't underestimate this power. Don't overlook this truth. You become what you believe, and if you don't like what you're becoming, you must change what you believe. There was a time when I believed I wasn't ready, that I needed more time, more knowledge, more approval. That belief cost me years. Years I'll never get back. Because while I waited for permission, life moved on. Opportunity doesn't wait for belief to catch up. It aligns only with those who walk like they belong before the gates are open. And so I learned that readiness is a lie. There is no perfect moment. There is no final sign. There is only belief and the decision to act on it or retreat from it. Belief is not passive. It is a weapon. It slices through hesitation. It separates the chosen from the forgotten. And when it's rooted in vision, backed by action, and guarded by discipline, it becomes unstoppable. You don't need a new life. You need a new lens, a new standard for what you tolerate, a new voice in your head, your own voice, not the ghost of someone else's opinion. Because let's be clear, most of what you believe about yourself was handed to you by someone else, by a parent's wound, a teacher's limitation, a friend's jealousy, a failure's echo. But you don't have to carry it anymore. You are allowed to outgrow your history. You are allowed to become too powerful for your past. That's the paradox, and people cling to beliefs that hurt them because it's familiar, because it gives them identity, because saying, this is just who I am, is easier than saying, this is who I've chosen to become. But you are not a slave to old scripts. You are the author, and the page is blank. So what now? What story will you write? The world will give you 1,000 reasons to doubt, 1,000 signs that say play small, stay safe, be realistic, But belief, true belief, gives you the one reason that matters. I was not born to stay where I started. Do you feel that? It's not just motivation, it's remembrance. It's the buried truth inside you, shaking off the dust and standing up straight. You were meant to rise. You were meant to carry the torch, not wait for someone to light it. You were meant to live with such fierce conviction that even your enemies begin to question their doubt, because belief is contagious. It spreads from your posture to your presence, from your language to your results, and it reorders the atmosphere around you. Walk into a room with deep belief in yourself and the energy bends. People listen differently. Opportunities appear. Resistance fades. Not because the world changed, but because you did. This is the miracle of belief. And it's available to you now, right now. But you must claim it, embody it, speak it even when your voice cracks. Because you become what you believe. And belief, true belief, is the most dangerous, beautiful power you will ever hold. There will come a day, maybe it's today, when you wake up and realize that your doubt has never protected you, that your fear of believing big was never wisdom. It was self-preservation dressed as caution. And all it preserved was a version of you that never truly lived. You see, most people think belief must be earned, that they have to prove themselves before they can feel worthy of greatness. But that's backwards. Belief comes first. Proof follows. That's the law. When a man believes in himself, the world adjusts. The world responds to his energy, not his excuses. And when a woman believes in her worth, she stops settling. She stops shrinking. She stops waiting. You have waited long enough. Belief does not ask if you are ready. It does not negotiate with fear. It demands a decision. And that decision, to rise, to act, to speak with power, becomes the foundation of your next life. You cannot think your way into a new destiny. You must believe your way there, and then walk it out, step by step, until your reality submits to your conviction. Every time you show up for yourself when it's easier to quit, belief grows. Every time you speak power into your future instead of repeating your pain, belief deepens. Every time you make a move that scares you, but aligns with who you want to be, belief expands. You are the sculptor. You are the fire. You are the living proof that belief can bend reality, but it only works when you stop wishing and start deciding. That's the part they don't tell you. Belief is not soft. It is not gentle. It is war. It is tearing down the old idols you worshipped, the ones that told you to be small, to be safe, to be silent. It is declaring to your own mind, I no longer serve the version of me who was too afraid to become great. And it is in that declaration, raw, unpolished, trembling though it may be, that the shift begins. Because belief isn't about being certain. It's about being committed. Committed to a future that hasn't yet shown its face, but lives inside you like a prophecy. And you either feed that prophecy or you bury it. But either way, you become what you believe. So ask yourself, what have you been feeding? And what are you ready to starve? Because belief, my friend, is a choice. And your life will echo that choice forever. There's a moment in every journey where the terrain shifts, where it gets harder, not easier, where the old patterns scream louder, demanding your return. And right there, at that invisible threshold, is where belief must rise. Because belief isn't tested in moments of ease, it is tested in the fire, in silence, in rejection, in the gut-wrenching space between the decision and the result. That's where the transformation happens. That's where identity is forged. You see, anyone can believe when the path is clear, when the applause is loud, when the results are rolling in. But that's not belief. That's observation. True belief is stubborn. It stares into the void and speaks life. It builds the bridge while crossing the canyon. It keeps walking when nothing around it says, keep going. And that's what separates those who rise from those who repeat. So let me speak directly to the part of you that feels tired, the part that wonders if belief is enough, the part that's been trying, pushing, holding the vision with trembling hands, and still feels behind. Listen to me. You're not behind. You're becoming. You're not late. You're in process. Belief doesn't always look like fire. Sometimes it looks like showing up one more time, even when the world tells you to sit down. And if you can understand that, truly grasp it, then you'll no longer measure your worth by your current results. You'll measure it by your resolve, because belief is not a feeling. It's a stand. It's saying, I may not be there yet, but I no longer belong to where I came from. That alone is power. That alone will begin to rearrange the molecules of your reality. That alone will shake loose the old patterns, the toxic connections, the invisible chains that held you captive for years. Most people live in reaction. They let the world tell them who they are. But you are choosing to live in creation. You are telling the world who you will become. And yes, it takes time. It takes endurance. But more than anything, it takes belief. A belief so deep, so grounded, so immovable that no circumstance can uproot it. That is what you're building now. That is what will carry you through the storm. Because belief is not a strategy, it is not a tactic, it is identity, and identity, once claimed, reshapes destiny. So hold the line, keep your head up, speak the truth of who you're becoming until the world echoes it back, because you become what you believe, and belief, when anchored in vision, makes the impossible inevitable. There is a power that lives within every man and woman, a force waiting in silence, untouched by fear, unmoved by failure. That power awakens the moment you believe, not when you succeed, not when you're praised, not when everything finally makes sense, but when you decide to believe before the world agrees, because the world follows the believer, not the other way around. Every titan you admire, every legacy that shaped the course of history, began with one unseen belief, one thought that refused to die, one truth that burned hotter than every failure, louder than every doubt. And I'll tell you something most people will never admit. You don't need to be ready. You need to be willing. Willing to look ridiculous, willing to be misunderstood, willing to walk alone before others follow. That is the price of belief. But oh, what it gives in return. It gives you power, quiet, unshakable power. The kind that makes doors open, not because you knocked, but because your presence made it undeniable that you belonged inside. It gives you resilience, a spine forged from vision, a fire that refuses to go out, even when soaked in setback. And it gives you peace, not because life gets easier, but because you are no longer at war with who you are meant to become. Most people never reach that. They spend their lives chasing certainty, collecting validations, begging for external signs. And all the while, the only sign they ever needed was belief itself, belief in their divine right to grow, to rise, to break the mold. So let this be the moment you stop waiting. No more waiting for confidence. Create it. No more waiting for proof. Become it. No more waiting for perfect timing. You are the timing. And no more waiting for permission. You were born with authority, the authority to choose, the authority to become, the authority to shape reality from the inside out, because that's what belief really is, inner authority. And when you carry it, people feel it. They don't always understand it. They may reject it, but they will feel it. And in time, the world will bend around it. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You only need one, you. Because that one belief, fully owned, fully lived, becomes a beacon. And that beacon, it lights the path for others. But first, it sets you free. You become what you believe. So believe like your life depends on it, because it does. The man who knows what he believes walks differently. He speaks differently. He doesn't look for direction in the eyes of others. He carries it in his bones. The woman who believes in her worth no longer performs for approval. She radiates, and the world adjusts. This is not arrogance. It is alignment. Because belief, when rooted in truth, produces clarity. And clarity, it removes the chaos. You stop chasing everything. You stop saying yes to the wrong things. You stop negotiating with people who don't see your value because you no longer need their sight to confirm your vision. That is what belief gives you, a stillness, a knowing, a center that cannot be moved. And once you have that, you become dangerous, not to others, but to limitation itself. The chains begin to fall. The patterns begin to crack. The fear that once ruled your decisions starts to dissolve under the light of your conviction. But here's the warning I must give you. Not everyone will celebrate your belief. Some will resist it, because your change reminds them of their stagnation. Your courage exposes their comfort. Your growth calls out their excuses. Let them squirm. You are not responsible for their response. You are responsible only for your alignment. And when you align your belief with the truth of who you are becoming, nothing can stop the transformation. Let me say that again. Nothing. Not your past, not your circumstances, not the doubts that knock at your door in the dark of night. Because belief, real belief, is a fire that consumes excuses. It doesn't ask for reassurance. It creates evidence. But don't expect that evidence to arrive in the form of applause. Sometimes the only sign you're on the right path is resistance. That's how you know you're leaving the old self behind. That's how you know the old identity is gasping for air, desperate to survive in a reality you've already outgrown. Smile when it shows up. It means the work is working. It means the belief is no longer just a thought. It's becoming a force. And when belief becomes a force, you no longer adapt to the world. The world begins to adapt to you. So stop explaining. Stop defending. Stop asking for understanding from those still sleeping. You're awake now. And the awakened carry a different frequency, one that attracts opportunity, demands respect, and walks through fire without flinching. You become what you believe. So walk like it's already yours. There comes a point on the journey when belief is no longer a thought you visit. It becomes the ground you walk on. Every step echoes with purpose. Every decision flows from identity. You no longer ask, can I do this? You ask only, is this aligned with who I am becoming? That's the shift. When belief is no longer about proving something, it's about living something. You don't need to broadcast it. You don't need to convince the world, because belief that is true will reveal itself in silence, in presence, in unshakable action. And those who are meant to follow will. But let me tell you something raw. The higher you climb in belief, the more your old world will tremble. Habits will resist. People will resist. Even your own thoughts will rise up in rebellion. Who are you to believe this much, they'll ask, and your answer must be clear, immediate, and grounded in truth. I am the one who decided to become more. That is your authority. That is your power. Because belief isn't about being better than anyone else. It's about becoming better than who you used to be, and doing it unapologetically. The old version of you will try to haunt you. It will whisper reminders of who you once were. It will try to guilt you into returning to your smaller self, the one that was easy to control. But here's the key. You are no longer available for that identity. You've upgraded. You've stepped into new standards, new thoughts, new rituals, and most importantly, a new self-concept. And now that belief has taken root, everything must rise to meet it, or fall away. Yes, some things will fall away. Relationships, jobs, comfort zones. Let them. Don't mourn what belief burns away. It is the fire that clears the field for growth. The clearing is not loss, it's alignment. And when you stay committed to your higher belief, even in the absence of applause, even in the storm, even in the long quiet stretch between seed and harvest, you are sculpting something eternal, a self that cannot be taken, a life that cannot be shaken, a mind that no longer submits to the mood of the moment. That is the reward of belief. That is what you are building. And when the dust settles and you look around at the life you've created, not handed to you, but forged from vision, action, and relentless self-faith, you'll know. You'll know it was worth every sacrifice, because you become what you believe. And you believed on purpose. The mind, when trained by belief, becomes a weapon, not of destruction, but of precision. It no longer flinches at uncertainty. It no longer dances with doubt. It slices through distraction, cuts away compromise, and moves with intent. This is the final evolution of belief, when it becomes instinct. You no longer have to hype yourself up. You no longer battle with hesitation. You simply move, because it would feel unnatural not to. That's the power of identity hardened by conviction. When you've repeated the right belief so many times that it no longer feels like hope, it feels like home. Most people never get there. They stop at inspiration. They flirt with belief but never marry it. And so their life remains in limbo, full of flashes of potential, but no foundation. But you've chosen differently. You've chosen to train your mind like a soldier, to feed it thoughts that build, not break. You've chosen to become so rooted in your future self that the present must rise to catch up. That kind of belief, it rewires you. You start seeing the world through a new lens. Obstacles shrink, noise fades, time stretches, because you're no longer asking, can I? You're commanding, I will. And that shift echoes through your actions, the way you speak, the way you sit in a room, the way you carry silence, not as weakness, but as gravity. You become magnetic, not because of what you chase, but because of what you embody. And what you embody is belief. There's a calm that comes with it, a quiet certainty. You're not frantic, you're focused, you're not begging, you're building, you're not performing, you're becoming, and the world can't help but respond. So do not be fooled by appearances. Do not be discouraged by the time it takes. The deeper the belief, the stronger the root, and the stronger the root, the more unshakable the tree. You are becoming that tree. You are becoming that force. And every single day you choose to believe again, especially when it's hard, you are casting a vote for the life you're building. So vote boldly, vote relentlessly, because you become what you believe, and belief backed by discipline becomes destiny. There's something sacred about belief when it's earned through fire, when it isn't handed to you with a smile, but forged in the silence of your own doubt. That kind of belief doesn't fade when things get hard. It deepens, because it knows the terrain. It remembers the nights you kept going without applause, the mornings you rose with no reason but the quiet whisper, keep building. The moments you acted as if you were already the person you longed to become, even when nothing around you confirmed it. This is the unseen discipline of the greats. They believed when it was lonely. They believed when it was inconvenient. They believed when everything in their current life mocked the future they saw in their mind, and still they believed. And now it's your turn. You don't need the whole plan. You don't need everything to make sense. You need only the next decision, the next action, to be aligned with the version of you that already exists inside belief. That version isn't in the distance. It's not years away. It's already here, waiting for you to stop negotiating with fear and start walking like the future is yours, because it is. The illusion is that time is the separator. The truth is that belief is the bridge. The stronger the belief, the faster the transformation. This is why two people can start in the same place. One moves mountains, the other moves in circles. One believes in inevitability, the other believes in obstacles. And belief, as always, proves itself right. So I ask you now, who are you becoming? Not what are you achieving, not what are you doing, but who are you being right now? Because your actions will never outgrow your self-concept, and your self-concept is built from the bricks of belief. Stack them well, stack them daily. And when the doubt rises, because it will, don't argue with it. Don't fight it. Just outgrow it. Starve it by feeding belief with action. Because belief that is not acted upon turns into fantasy. But belief that is backed by daily alignment becomes unstoppable. And that is where you are headed. Not because you're lucky, not because it's easy, but because you've chosen the path of belief and refused to turn back. You become what you believe. And now that belief has matured into something sacred, something no one can take. Let me tell you a truth so few ever grasp. The world is not testing your talent. It's testing your belief. Your skills matter. Your knowledge matters. But belief is what activates them. Without it, genius sits in silence. Potential gathers dust. I've seen brilliant minds shrink before mediocre ones, not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked belief. They questioned their right to take up space. They second-guessed their voice until they went silent altogether. Don't let that be your story. You were not born to be a background character in your own life. You were born to lead, to shape, to influence. But none of that happens until you grant yourself the permission to believe. And let me be clear, this isn't about arrogance. It's not about blind delusion or puffed-up ego. It's about alignment, knowing deep in your bones that what you carry inside you matters, that it deserves expression, that it has weight, value, force. When belief becomes your foundation, fear becomes irrelevant. Not because fear disappears, but because it no longer commands your movement. It becomes background noise, barely audible beneath the roar of your decision. That's the state you're building toward. You no longer need to psych yourself up. You don't chase momentum. You are momentum. Because your belief isn't based on yesterday's outcome, it's based on tomorrow's identity. And when you live from that future identity, everything changes. You no longer ask, how long will this take? You ask, how deeply can I commit? Because when belief is deep, time becomes irrelevant. Whether it takes 6 months or 6 years doesn't matter, because your conviction doesn't expire. That's when people start noticing. They see something in your eyes, something unwavering. They can't explain it, but they feel it, and they begin to believe too, in your vision, in your energy, sometimes even in themselves. This is the ripple of belief. It spreads. It elevates rooms. It cracks ceilings. But it starts in silence, when no one's watching, when no one's cheering, when it's just you and the choice to rise again. So rise. Not because it's easy, not because it's guaranteed, but because it's who you've decided to be. You become what you believe. And when belief becomes your identity, the world bends to meet it. There is a voice within you, older than fear, louder than doubt, that speaks only in truth. It's quiet, yes, but it's never wrong. That voice is your belief unfiltered, untamed, undiluted by the opinions of others. And it's been waiting for you to listen. Most people drown it out with noise, the noise of social approval, of endless distraction, of chasing relevance instead of meaning. But not you, not anymore. You've begun to hear it again, that soft certainty that says, this isn't all there is. I was made for more. That's not fantasy, that's memory. The memory of who you were before the world convinced you to shrink, before you learned to apologize for your own ambition, before you traded vision for validation. But belief, real belief, is the process of returning to that voice and following it, even when the path disappears beneath your feet. Because belief is not found, it is forged, built through resistance, strengthened by repetition, and solidified in movement. You cannot think your way into confidence. You act your way there. And every time you move as if the outcome is inevitable, you teach your mind that greatness is your default, not a prize to be earned, but a state to be remembered. This is the secret. This is what they don't teach, that you don't need to become someone else. You need only to become fully yourself, without the chains of past doubt, without the mask of insecurity, without the need to explain your fire to those still afraid of theirs. Belief is not becoming something new, it's shedding what never belonged. And when you do that, when you strip away everything that was built on fear, what remains is pure power. It's not loud. It doesn't need to be. It walks into a room and shifts the atmosphere without saying a word. Because when you believe, truly believe, your energy speaks before your mouth ever does. And those around you will either rise to meet it or fade away. Let them. You're not here to convince anyone. You're here to embody belief so completely that reality itself has no choice but to respond. You become what you believe, and belief is the most honest language your life will ever speak. Somewhere along the way, they told you to be realistic, to lower your expectations, to be careful not to dream too big, not to want too much, not to shine too brightly. They masked their fear as wisdom and sold it to you as protection. But belief doesn't thrive in safety. It grows in risk, in vision, in the uncharted territories of your own soul, where logic has no map and intuition becomes your compass. You were not born to play it safe. You were not built to live within the lines someone else drew. And the life you crave, the one that burns in the back of your mind when the world gets quiet, that life will never come through caution. It will come through belief. The kind of belief that makes you walk away from average, not because it's wrong, but because it's not yours. The kind of belief that wakes you up earlier, keeps you up later, and makes the grind sacred. The kind of belief that says, even if it takes everything in me, I will not die with this potential still locked inside. That's the fuel now. Not approval, not applause, but belief in your mission, your calling, your unseen outcome. And it will be unseen for a while. You'll walk through seasons where nothing makes sense, where the results don't match the effort, where others question your sanity, your path, your purpose. But belief doesn't need evidence to begin. It creates evidence through persistence. Every time you hold the line, you rewrite your internal blueprint. You prove to yourself that you are not swayed by mood, by doubt, by delay. That's when it starts to change. Not outside, inside. And once it changes inside, it's only a matter of time before the outer world bends to match the new reality you've built with your mind. So let them say it's impossible. Let them say you're crazy. Let them mock your process, laugh at your goals, doubt your path. Because while they talk, you build. While they wait, you walk. While they fear, you believe. You become what you believe. And belief, bold, quiet, unshakable belief, is the only permission you'll ever need. The world is full of people who say they want change, but remain chained to the beliefs that guarantee they never will. They repeat the same patterns, speak the same stories, carry the same identity, and wonder why their life doesn't evolve. But your life can't rise higher than your self-image. You must see yourself as worthy of more before you'll reach for more. That's the key. That's the missing link in so many failed attempts at growth. They focus on behavior, on strategy, on tactics, but ignore the belief system underneath it all. The foundation is rotten, and so the house falls again and again. But you've started from the inside. You've begun to lay down new bricks of identity. And those bricks aren't just made of hope, they're made of decision. Because belief is a decision first, emotion second. You don't wait to feel powerful before you believe you are. You decide that you are powerful, and that belief begins to create the emotion. Over time, that emotion becomes momentum. That momentum becomes consistency, and that consistency creates results. That's the alchemy of transformation. And here's what most people miss. You don't need to believe in everything right away. You just need to believe in the next step, the next action, the next move. Belief is built in layers. Today you believe you can try. Tomorrow you believe you can progress. Soon you believe you can't not become the person you were meant to be. It builds quietly, steadily, unshakably. And when it's tested, because it will be, you don't flinch. Because belief, once lived long enough, becomes part of your blood. You carry it into every room. It guides every yes, every no. It becomes the reason you walk away from the cheap things that used to hook you, the distractions, the drama, the need to be seen. You no longer chase applause. You chase alignment. You no longer perform for approval. You live from authority. And the world responds to that in ways that seem like luck, but are really just echoes of belief. You become what you believe. So believe with your feet, believe with your schedule, believe with your standards, and soon your entire life will testify on your behalf. You can always tell when someone's belief has shifted, not because they speak louder, but because they move differently. Their eyes carry a calm resolve. Their energy no longer pleads, it commands. They're not trying to become someone new. They are someone new, and the world just hasn't caught up yet. That's the power of inner alignment. When your belief aligns with your identity, and your identity aligns with your action, you step into a force that bends probability in your favor. Not because of magic, but because belief focuses your vision, sharpens your discipline, and filters your decisions through the lens of who you're becoming. That changes everything. You stop wasting time. You stop explaining yourself. You stop tolerating the low-level conversations that once kept you comfortable but stagnant. And something strange happens. The more you believe in your mission, the less you need noise. Silence becomes your sanctuary. Stillness becomes your power, because belief removes the need to prove. You're no longer operating from desperation. You're operating from direction. And the people who are meant for you, clients, friends, partners, allies, they begin to show up. Not because you begged for them, but because belief made you visible in a frequency they could finally hear. That's how energy works. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you believe you are. So when your belief changes, your atmosphere changes. And make no mistake, it will trigger some. There will be people who liked you better when you were doubting, apologizing, explaining. When you start showing up with certainty, with vision, with standards, their comfort in your hesitation disappears. Let it. You're not here to soothe the insecurity of others. You're here to fulfill the calling inside you, the one that's been waiting for years to be taken seriously. This is that time. The belief you're building now is not just for you. It's for the version of you 5 years from now who's living the life others said was impossible. It's for the ones watching you in silence, wondering if they too are allowed to rise. Because belief, real belief, is never selfish. It liberates everyone it touches. You become what you believe. And when your belief becomes service, not just ambition, and you become unstoppable. The most powerful people in history were not the loudest. They were the most convicted. Their belief was not decoration, and it was oxygen. It animated their every move. They didn't ask the world to accept them. They accepted themselves first, and then moved forward with the kind of clarity that reshapes reality. You can feel that power when someone walks in a room, not because they demand attention, but because they no longer need it. That's the mark of someone who has made peace with their purpose. And that peace is what you're building now. Not the fragile peace of external comfort, but the unbreakable calm of inner certainty. A certainty that says, even if no one claps, I will still climb. Because when your belief is real, the absence of applause doesn't shake you. It sharpens you. You begin to realize that belief is not about hype. It's about consistency. It's not about waiting to feel inspired. It's about doing what must be done, regardless of emotion. Emotion may come and go, but belief, once cemented in discipline, stays. That's why belief must be rooted deeper than motivation, deeper than praise, deeper than results. It must sit in the soul, beyond the reach of circumstance. When it does, you no longer live at the mercy of your moods. You no longer need perfect conditions to show up. You become steady, relentless, dangerous to every version of yourself that once settled for less. And in that stillness, you find something most people never do: power without noise, strength without aggression, command without chaos. The kind of power that comes from knowing who you are, where you're going, and what you refuse to compromise along the way. That power cannot be faked. It must be earned by showing up again and again, especially when it's hardest, especially when doubt creeps in wearing the face of logic, especially when comfort whispers, "You've done enough, but you know better now. You've chosen a new standard." And belief, true belief, never lets you shrink back to old levels once it has tasted your future. So lean in. Walk tall. Let your presence speak louder than your explanations. You become what you believe. And when belief becomes your way of life, everything changes, not just around you, but through you. At some point, you must realize belief is not a mindset. It is a movement, an internal uprising, a rebellion against the smaller self you've been rehearsing for too long. It begins in a whisper, but once fully formed, it roars. And it changes how you do everything. You no longer wait for external pressure to push you forward. You move because your identity demands it. You don't act out of fear of failure. You act out of loyalty to who you've decided to become. That decision becomes sacred, because once you declare a new belief, everything unaligned must go. And yes, it will feel like loss. But that's only because you're releasing the version of you that could never carry the next level. You must bury who you were to birth who you are becoming. There is no bypass, no shortcut. You can't drag your excuses into your destiny. You can't hold on to comfort and expect expansion. You can't cling to the familiar and still rise into the extraordinary. Belief demands separation from habits, from people, from environments, even from parts of yourself that once served you but no longer do. And the world won't understand it. They'll say, "You've changed." Yes, yes, you have, because growth is not something you add. It's someone you become, and becoming requires burning. Old ways of thinking, old definitions of self, old compromises. You don't just step into a new life. You shed your way into it, like a snake shedding skin that no longer fits, like a phoenix rising from the ashes it chose to ignite. You do not wait for transformation. You cause it through belief. And when you choose to believe in your vision more than your past, your future begins to move toward you. Doors open, voices shift, paths appear, not because the world has changed, but because you have. Because the world doesn't give you what you ask for, it gives you what you are, and who you are is who you believe yourself to be. You become what you believe, and when you believe fiercely, fully, unapologetically, the universe has no choice but to respond in kind. There will be a day, if you stay the course, when you look in the mirror and no longer recognize the person staring back. Not because you've lost yourself, but because you've finally found yourself, the true self, the one that existed before fear, before failure, before the world taught you to doubt your own fire. That day is coming, and every moment of belief you choose now brings it closer. You see, transformation isn't one grand decision. It's thousands of small, unseen ones. It's waking up and choosing power over pity, focus over distraction, alignment over approval. It's saying no to what drains you, yes to what builds you, even when no one's watching. Because belief is private long before it's public. The spotlight only reveals what you've rehearsed in the dark. And right now, right here, you are rehearsing a life that the future version of you will thank you for. Don't underestimate that. Don't underestimate the power of choosing one aligned action over 100 wishful thoughts. That's what belief looks like when it's lived. Not loud, but lethal. And it changes the tempo of your entire existence. You begin to move with urgency, not desperation. You begin to treat your time as sacred. You begin to walk with the posture of someone who knows that what they're building is not just for them, but for generations. Because belief doesn't stop with you. It ripples through your family, your friendships, your work, your presence. When you rise, you show others it's possible. You shift what's normal. You redefine what's expected. You become a lighthouse, not because you shouted, but because you stood. And people notice that kind of power. They may not say it, they may not understand it, but they feel it, because belief has a frequency. And when yours is pure, unwavering, and forged in discipline, you become impossible to ignore. So keep going. Keep planting seeds in the silence. Keep showing up like it's already done. Because belief doesn't wait to celebrate. It celebrates in motion. And as you walk, as you build, as you breathe this new self into being, know this: you are already becoming. You are already breaking the cycle. You are already proving that you are more powerful than the past you were handed. You become what you believe, and belief, backed by relentless action, becomes legacy. There's a moment when belief clicks, when it stops being something you try on and becomes something you live inside. It fits. It belongs. It's no longer an act of faith. It's a fact of being. And when that moment comes, you'll notice something subtle but profound. You stop arguing with reality. You stop needing things to go your way to feel powerful. You stop tying your worth to outcomes, because your worth is no longer rented from results. It's owned by identity, and that identity is forged in belief. This is the switch from chasing to attracting, from striving to embodying. You're no longer looking for proof. You are the proof. You wake up and move like the outcome is inevitable, because in your mind it already is. That is the state of inner authority. And when you reach it, when your belief becomes the lens through which you interpret everything, fear loses its grip, not because the stakes disappear, but because your roots go deeper than the storm. Others will still flinch, others will still freeze, but you'll keep walking, not because you feel invincible, but because you are committed. And that commitment, that consistency, that conscious decision to keep showing up no matter what, that is what makes you untouchable. You won't always be the loudest. You won't always be the most talented. But belief levels the playing field and then tilts it in your favor, because belief makes you resourceful. It sharpens your focus. It turns limitations into leverage. And most of all, it rewires what you tolerate. You stop entertaining distractions. You stop explaining your evolution. You stop watering relationships that wilt in the light of your ambition, because you're no longer living at the mercy of approval. You're living in alignment with destiny. And destiny does not wait. So don't wait either. Don't wait until the fear goes away. Don't wait until they understand. Don't wait until the conditions are perfect. Make the move, take the leap, speak the truth, and let your belief catch you. Because belief always shows up for those who walk in it. You become what you believe. And when belief becomes your standard, your future becomes non-negotiable. There's a quiet moment in the life of every builder, a moment where the noise fades, the opinions disappear, and it's just you and your decision to keep going. That's when belief is tested. Not when things are exciting, not when the path is clear, but when it feels like you're walking alone with nothing but your vision to guide you. And it's in that moment that champions are born, not through grand declarations, but through simple defiance, a refusal to quit, a refusal to go back, a refusal to betray the version of you that had the courage to begin. Because belief, real belief, is loyalty to your future self. It's choosing her, choosing him every single day, even when your current life hasn't caught up yet. Even when it feels like nothing is changing, even when the results are quiet but the resistance is loud, you choose belief anyway. You move as if the outcome is certain, not because you're naive, but because you've decided that certainty is not a condition, it's a commitment. And in that commitment, everything changes. You speak differently. You breathe differently. You stand in rooms with a different presence, not from ego, but from clarity. People feel it, and they respond to it, even if they don't understand it. Because belief isn't just a feeling, it's an energy. And that energy communicates long before words ever do. You don't need to prove it. You don't need to explain it. You just need to become it. Become the person who no longer needs permission. Become the person who doesn't wait to be chosen. Become the person who doesn't shrink when things get uncertain, but rises with even more focus. That is who you are now, not someday. Now, because belief isn't built in the future. It's built in the present. It's how you show up today that writes the story of what you receive tomorrow. You become what you believe, so believe like the next breath depends on it, because in many ways, it does. The truth is, there's nothing more dangerous than a person who has made peace with their power. Not because they're aggressive, but because they're no longer afraid of who they could become. They no longer flinch when the old identity tries to pull them back. They no longer hesitate when the opportunity demands risk. They've stopped looking for who they are in the mirror and started building it in the dark. And the foundation of all of it is belief. Belief that says, this life I see in my mind, it's not a fantasy, it's a blueprint. Belief that says, I don't need to explain my fire, I need only to honor it. When you reach that level, your presence shifts the atmosphere. You no longer chase rooms. Rooms open because you are the key. You no longer sell your time to the lowest bidder. You realize time is your most sacred currency, and you spend it where your belief says you're becoming. This is how leaders are made, not by being louder, but by being aligned. Not by collecting followers, but by living so fully in their belief that others are compelled to follow. And that kind of belief, it can't be borrowed. It can't be faked. It can't be copied. It must be built. And it's built when you stop measuring your belief by how easy the path is and start measuring it by how unshakable your decision remains in difficulty. That's how you know your belief is real. When the storm comes and you still build, when the doors close and you still knock, when no one understands and you still walk like your vision is inevitable, because it is, but not by accident. Not by luck, by design. And the designer is you. The architect is belief. You become what you believe. So believe boldly, believe fiercely. And don't just speak it, live it. There's a line you cross when belief becomes non-negotiable. A line where you stop dipping your toe into your future and finally step into it, fully, with both feet. No exit plan, no fallback identity. You commit, and that commitment rewrites everything. That's when you stop seeking motivation. Because you no longer need to feel like it. You simply do it. Discipline becomes natural. Sacrifice becomes obvious. And procrastination, it disappears. Not because the work is easy, but because it's aligned. That's what belief does. It clears the fog. It strips away the noise. It makes every yes and every no a vote for the version of you you're becoming. And the more you vote in alignment with that future self, the stronger the belief becomes, until one day you look around and realize you are no longer trying to become the person you dreamed of. You are them. You've moved past potential, past waiting, past proving. Now, you're just walking in truth. Not everyone's going to understand that shift. They'll say you're different. They'll say you've changed. And they'll be right, because belief changes the way you breathe, the way you speak, the way you walk into a room. It strips away the need to impress and replaces it with presence. Presence that speaks louder than 100 self-help books. Presence that declares, I know who I am. I know where I'm going. And I know what I no longer entertain. And let me tell you something most won't admit. Belief isn't loud. It's not always fiery or explosive. Sometimes belief is silent, steady. It's the quiet decision to get back up, to speak your truth, to walk away from what no longer reflects your worth. It's the power of alignment over attention. And when you master that, When you choose purpose over performance, you begin to live at a frequency most never reach. You walk differently because you know, not think, not hope, know. You become what you believe. And when your belief becomes embodied, your life becomes inevitable. When you truly believe, the world no longer feels like something happening to you. It becomes something rising through you. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop bracing for life and begin commanding it. This is the moment you step out of survival mode, because belief rewrites the rules. Where once you waited for signs, now you become the signal. Where once you chased validation, now you embody truth. And truth doesn't waver. You stop showing up halfway. You stop lowering your tone, your standards, your energy to meet others in their comfort. You let them rise or watch you go. Not because you think you're better, but because you finally know you're becoming. And the person you're becoming has no time for smallness, no appetite for self-betrayal, no interest in repeating the cycles that once kept you numb and hidden. The moment you believe, the game changes. You look at your calendar differently. You measure your words more carefully. You move through rooms like they're lucky to have you, not from arrogance, but from alignment. Because when you know your value, your presence stops being a question mark. It becomes a full sentence. And those who feel threatened by that presence were never meant to walk with you anyway. Let them watch. Let them wonder. You're not here to explain your belief. You're here to live it so fully, so consistently, that the results begin to echo louder than the doubt ever could. Because that's what belief does. It becomes evidence. Not instantly, but eventually. One action at a time, one standard at a time. One unshakable moment of saying, I no longer do that. I no longer accept that. I no longer am that. Until there's nothing left of the old you but gratitude. Gratitude for the pain that woke you up. Gratitude for the silence that taught you strength. Gratitude for the belief that built it all. You become what you believe. So believe in a way that would make your younger self proud and your future self unstoppable. The day you stop negotiating with your old self is the day you start living. Fully, clearly, unapologetically. Because until then, your belief is split, divided, tugged between who you were and who you're trying to become. But belief requires unity. You must burn the plan B, close the back door, release the version of yourself that made decisions from fear, from scarcity, from the need to be liked. Because that version, no matter how familiar, cannot survive in the world you are building. And yes, it will resist. It will claw at your mind with familiar stories of what if I fail? What will they think? Who am I to try this? But now you know the truth. You don't owe your past any more loyalty. You owe your future everything. Belief means rewriting the narrative. It means waking up and acting as if it's already done, because in the eyes of your identity, it is. That's the paradox. You don't wait to feel worthy. You act like you are. And worthiness rises to meet you. You don't wait to feel capable. You show up as capable, and capability becomes your default. Belief is not passive. It's aggressive. It moves first and lets reality catch up. And the more you live that way, the more you realize most of the limits you once honored were inventions, constructs, invisible fences passed down from tired minds. And when you stop accepting them, they vanish. That's when things accelerate. Not because life got easier, but because your agreement with difficulty expired. You stopped saying, it has to be hard, and started saying, it has to be aligned. So now, alignment is your compass. Discipline is your engine. And belief is your flame. That combination makes you unstoppable. Not reckless, but relentless. Not noisy, but undeniable. You become what you believe. And when belief becomes your baseline, you no longer chase success. You attract it by becoming it. There's a calm that arrives when belief finally becomes your home. A stillness, not because there's no chaos around you, but because there's no chaos within you. You've made your decision. You've cast your vote. You've chosen your identity, and now you live from it, not toward it. And this changes everything. You're no longer waiting for the world to give you permission. You've already authorized yourself. That stamp, that seal of inner certainty, cannot be revoked by circumstances or critics, because when your belief becomes internal law, nothing external can overturn it. That's how great legacies are built, quietly, repetitively, day by day, moment by moment, choice by choice, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. In the early mornings, the late nights, the skipped temptations, the quiet refusals to settle. That's belief in its most powerful form. It's not loud, it's loyal. It stays when the results are invisible. It acts when no one else is watching. It speaks the truth even when the voice shakes. And over time, it hardens, it deepens, it crystallizes into certainty, a frequency so high that only aligned opportunities can reach it. You'll start to see it. Old paths will close, old habits will break, old conversations will feel too small for the space you now occupy, and that's how you'll know. Your belief has upgraded your identity. You don't chase anymore, and you draw things to you. Opportunities, people, moments, not by force, but by resonance, because life doesn't give you what you beg for. It gives you what you believe you are worthy of. And you no longer settle. You no longer shrink. You no longer carry the weight of unworthiness you were never meant to hold. You've returned to yourself. You've remembered who you are, and now you walk like the outcome is inevitable, because it is. You become what you believe. So believe like your name depends on it, because one day it will. Every belief you hold is a doorway, a threshold into a new life, or a gate locking you in the old one. And most people never check the keys they carry. They walk through life using beliefs that were never truly theirs, never examined, never chosen, just inherited, but not you. You've begun to ask the question that rewrites destiny. Who told me this was true? Who told you that you had to struggle? Who told you that your dreams were too much? Who told you to wait your turn, to stay in line, to be realistic? And why did you believe them? Because here's the secret. The voice that narrates your limits doesn't have to be yours anymore. You can change the script. You can break the cadence. You can speak something new into your soul and let it echo until the old belief dies from lack of repetition. That's how rebirth works. Not in fire and drama, but in repetition. New thoughts, again and again, until your nervous system says, yes, this is who we are now. That's belief in practice. It's not just a feeling. It's not a moment of motivation. It's a system, a rhythm, a decision repeated so many times it becomes identity. And identity, that's the real goal. Because when your identity shifts, everything else follows. Your habits, your standards, your expectations, even your relationships. What once required effort now becomes effortless. Not because life changed, but because you did. You're no longer trying to escape your old life. You've simply stopped believing it's yours. And in its place, you've written something new, a narrative of power, precision, purpose. And every day you act from that new belief, you deepen the story. You anchor it in your body. You make it real. Because belief without action is a wish. But belief expressed through movement, that's manifestation. That's when life starts catching up. You become what you believe. So believe in a way that leaves no room for who you used to be. The final transformation doesn't arrive with fanfare. It comes quietly. The moment you stop trying to feel like the person you want to be and start behaving like them no matter what, because that's the truth no one tells you. Belief is a behavior long before it becomes a feeling. It's how you carry yourself when no one validates you. It's how you invest your time when no one's watching. It's how you respond when life squeezes you. Do you fold or do you stand taller? These are the rituals that reveal what you truly believe. Not what you say you believe, not what you hope is true, but what you live. Because the life you're living right now, whether it's powerful or painful, fulfilling or frustrating, is not random. It is the byproduct of what you've believed about yourself up until this very moment. But here's the grace. You are not bound to yesterday's blueprint. At any moment, even now, you can choose again. And that choice, it rewrites the code. It opens doors that once mocked you. It changes the way the world sees you, because you've changed the way you see you. You've stopped being the echo of someone else's fear. You've stopped carrying dreams like burdens, hoping they're small enough to fit inside someone else's approval. You've stepped into something sacred, belief that is yours, born from your own struggle, built from your own vision, backed by your own commitment. That kind of belief isn't borrowed, it isn't sold, it's earned, and because of that, no one can take it. You become what you believe, and now you believe on purpose, with power and without apology. So here we are. You've walked with me through the fire, thought by thought, line by line, not just listening, but remembering. Remembering that belief is not something you go out and find. It's something you wake up inside yourself. And now there's no going back. You've crossed the line. The version of you who needed outside permission is gone. The version who tolerated being underestimated by others or by yourself has been buried. And what stands in their place is something unshakable. You now know that belief is the birthplace of every breakthrough. You now know that belief is the sculptor of identity, the author of action, the silent engine behind every unstoppable force in history. And most of all, you now know that belief is a choice you make in silence, a choice you make in sweat, a choice you make when no one claps, when the results don't show, when your voice shakes and your path disappears into the fog. You choose anyway, and in that choice, you transcend. So from this moment forward, speak only what builds, walk only where your vision leads, act only in alignment with the highest version of yourself, not someday, but now. Every decision, every step, every breath, let it confirm what you've come to understand. You become what you believe. And when you believe without compromise, without apology, without delay, you don't just change your life, you change the world. So rise now, not to prove anything, not to impress anyone, but because this is who you are. You were born to build, born to lead, born to carry the weight of a belief so strong, so clear, so lived, that it sets fire to every excuse it touches. This is your time, your mountain, your mind, and you will own it. Not because it's easy, but because you finally believe you were meant to. The world makes way for those who dare to rise. Click the Rise button now to subscribe and claim the destiny waiting for you. Your time is now.